Albert?
I'm good, Rich. I'm back out on that street corner again for you.
Are you really? Are you in D.C. right now?
Yeah, I'm right back in the same spot I was during those days of 120-degree heat index and having to change my shirt 3 times. And it was me and you. You were doing TA every day back then.
I was in the climate-controlled comfort of the Culver City NFL Network studios,
right.
talking to you, essentially having the same conversation every day. It was Groundhog Day. Well, we're not any closer, and if they can only get the lawyers out of the room, maybe a deal can get done. And one of those lawyers that everybody wanted out of the room was Jeffrey Kessler. No question about that, Albert. What does his addition to the Brady legal team signify to you?
Well, for the union, it's procedural. You know, they put him on all the big cases. So he handled Adrian Peterson. He handled Ray Rice. He handled Greg Hardy. He handles all the big ones for them. And obviously, he's been a thorn in the side of the NFL for a long, long time. I mean, we're talking decades with him. And he's been successful in the courts against the NFL. He's been involved in every major labor dispute. And this is, without question, a sign of the highest level of support from the union to Tom Brady, that they would retain Jeffrey Kessler for this case. And, you know, going forward, it's, you know, I think it's a tough pill to swallow for the NFL because they haven't always been successful against him.
So what is the strategy from what you're hearing right now for Brady moving forward here?
Very simple. For Jeffrey Kessler, if Brady chooses to bring his own lawyer in, he'll be included on this too. It's to narrow everything that we've got in that big report down to a simple question: did Tom Brady cheat? And the people in the union and Tom Brady's people feel like they can cast significant doubt on that one question, and they'll take it through the CBA appeals process. The role of the arbitrator is going to be very, very important here. Goodell's got 3 choices. He can appoint himself arbitrator, he can appoint a designee arbitrator, or he can appoint an independent arbitrator. And, the union will fight if it's Harold Henderson. They could go with Barbara Jones, who is an independent arbitrator who handled the Ray Rice case. But that's the next important piece, going forward here. Who's going to serve as arbitrator? And if they're not successful in the appeal process, my feeling is that the union, Jeffrey Kessler and Brady, would be more than willing to take this to court.
So the Vilma strategy, essentially.
Yes. I think Brady is. I mean, look, I've covered Tom Brady for 10 years. I can tell you this. His image and his character is very important to him. And he holds himself to a very high standard. And I'm sure he's taking this very, very, very personally and is willing to fight this thing to the end.
So, when you read the Wells report, what did you think, Albert? What do you think?
I think a couple of things stick out. The first thing is it's clear that something happened with the balls, and so that was the first thing. Is that the thing that separates this from, say, what Aaron Rodgers had talked about in the past, or Peyton Manning being maniacal about the ball, is that if you turn the ball into the official a certain way that you like it, and you may be, messing with some of the rules there, I think that probably falls under the category of gamesmanship. The amount of weird things that happen between Walt Anderson signing off on those balls and the balls getting on the field that really stuck out. And then, of course, the other thing is the lack of cooperation, which, in Brady's case was the failing to turn over the cell phone information, and then as far as the Patriots go, was failing to produce Jim McNally for a follow-up interview. With the league launching its own investigation arm now, I think that the timing for the Patriots and for Brady were bad there. That the lack of cooperation and what the league perceived as lying wasn't going to go over well and wasn't going to be tolerated.
Yeah, I mean, Albert Breer, NFL Network, NFL Media, joining me here. We had our NFL Media colleague Brian Billick on yesterday, Albert, and he made the analogy of there's a difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance. And this just seems like that Tom Brady has been audited, right?
Yeah.
He's just the one unlucky dude to get audited for this sort of thing. Is that in your mind a reasonable analogy, or is this something more
I think that's fair. I mean, I think that's the first part of it. Look, they were busted in 2007. They cost the Patriots, between them and Belichick, $750,000. It cost them a first-round pick. And the fact of the matter is that you're not working with the same standard when you go through something like that. if you're caught again. It's the same way, say, if Pete Carroll had stayed at USC, he would have been responsible for watching everyone who gives any of his players a free lunch from there on out, right? You're operating at a higher standard. And so I think it's fair to say that Brady was caught in circumstance there. And then the other end of it, of course, I think is the timing of it. The NFL was, 3-4 months ago they launched that investigation arm, right? And so they're doing that. They don't have subpoena power, and they don't put players under oath. You have to find a way to get people to cooperate and tell you the truth. And so the way they went through this report, they looked at it, they saw a lack of cooperation, and they perceived the Patriots and Brady to be lying on a number of things. And so I think they felt like, for the good of, their investigations going forward, and they just went through one with Greg Hardy, they needed to make a statement here about cooperation and about telling the truth when it comes to these investigations. And so that part of it, I think, not just the past history, but also the timing here. The league's coming off of Rice and Hardy and Peterson, and they just launched this investigative arm. I think that timing really wound up hurting Brady and the team.
Last question, Albert. Before you go back on the street corner for the network, I believe you've got a live hit, as they say in the television business, in about 20 minutes for NFL Network. Timeline it for me. How's this going to all play out?
Well, within the next 10 days, they'll set a date. The arbitrator, the availability of the arbitrator is probably going to dictate when that's going to happen. And based on what we saw last year with Ray Rice, you would think that the hearing would happen before the NFL teams break for the summer. So that's generally mid to late June. So sometime early to mid-June, I'd expect you'd have the appeal hearing. And then if we follow the Rice timeline again, you remember last year it took forever. Then we're probably talking about a decision right around the beginning of training camp towards the end of July. That gives the Patriots some clarity, and then Brady, of course, would have to decide whether or not he agrees with the ruling and decides to go with it, or if he doesn't agree with the ruling, whether or not to take it to court.
The opening night quarterback for the Patriots will be who?
Jimmy Garoppolo. I do think that Brady's going to be successful with the appeal, and that I think there's a good chance he'll get it knocked down. The way I look at this is, I think if you break it down, I think it's 2 games for lack of cooperation and 2 games for the violation. They got him on lack of cooperation. I think for the violation, there's some wiggle room there. So my guess is this thing gets knocked down by a game or 2, but I still think he's going to be suspended for some time. So I think in the opener, it'll be Jimmy Garoppolo starting for the Patriots.
Albert, let's chat soon.
You got it, Rich.
That's Albert Breer, NFL Network, NFL Media, NFL Total Access, right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.